a-hole, okay? But that's not what he did. He loves us dearly. We're what it's all about. You're what it's all about. I'm what it's all about. We are it. We are valued above everything else in this world. He doesn't give a crap about the silver and gold or anything else in this world. He cares about you. He cares about me. That's why we should have the highest self-esteem. It has nothing to do with vanity or ego or conceit or what do they call it? Self-righteousness. Okay, no, it's about his righteousness. It's about always pointing to him. We are expressions of God, each one of us, children of God, expressions of God, and we should live our lives accordingly with big shoes to fill. Like it's written, we're created just a little lower than the angels. So we've got to really take this business seriously about embracing the Spirit of God, the Spirit of truth, the Comforter, the Holy Spirit of God. This is what it encourage people, comfort people, and try to win people over. If you are convinced that they are deceived and they're stupid idiots, whatever their philosophy is, then you just be your honest best at convincing them to come out of the darkness into the light. And conversely, vice versa, the other way. That's what they should do to you. I recommend that for everybody. People show due respect to children of God like we all are. Okay, that's all I'm saying, that we need to love one another, and that includes your enemy. That's the cross the Christian has to bear. This is a command of Jesus. Jesus said, if you love me, you will follow my commandments. It's not going to be a forced thing. You're going to do it because you want to, because you're on the right page. It doesn't mean your enemy might not to be confined, and occasionally they might need to be killed, right? I mean, it's not what you want, though. It's not because you have a heart filled with hate. It's just because of the circumstances. It happened, okay? It was what you had to do in the defense of innocence, whatever the case may be. And there's sometimes you've got to excoriate people and make sure, look, I think I know you're a deceiver, and you've got to talk to them in a way like Jesus turning over the money changers' tables. He knew they were tricking people. They were duping them. They were cheating them out of their money. He knew what it was all about. It was a shell trick, shell game, right? Isn't that what it's all about? Is that you get a one-up on somebody. I know more about this, and I'm going to trick somebody through this illusion, through this delusion, through this deceit, through this trickery, through this fraud. And that's how they operate. So they've operated on all of us. So don't be too hard on yourself when you say, yeah, you know what, this guy's right, and I've got to have a different spirit. I've got to have a different attitude about people I'm trying to correct. Because remember, this is about unity, coming together, and realize, hey, look, I cannot be opposed to this person being born rich with a silver spoon in their mouth. Okay, that's really the mindset we all have to embrace, that it's okay. If God says it's okay, and it's clear that it is, that we should let conscience be our guide, honor, integrity, that sense of compunction when you could be a lazy sloth and sluggard in society and sit on the beach all day and not contribute, then what do you get at the end of your life? I mean, Victor Hugo, what he said. I mean, how many guys that are born with a silver spoon in their mouth are miserable at the end of their days? They've always lived a soft, pansy life. And then there's all these men out there that spent their life building transmissions and fixing engines and building houses and doing really constructive, productive stuff, and really, the lifeblood of society. These are the people that keep the wheels of society turning. And at the end of their days, they're glad that they weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth. That, they might find prosperity, they might not. Success, as defined by the world, right, is just making a lot of money, right? But you know what? At least these are men. These are real men that really spent their life usefully, and people really appreciated them, and they knew that. They knew that what they did for humanity was so important, like a dentist pulling somebody's tooth, like all these first responders. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? So, it's a paradoxical thing, because what Victor Hugo said is very true. Prosperity makes monsters, and adversity makes men, is what he said. That's the quote I'm talking about. And the reason it's a paradox is because of the reasons I just mentioned, okay? So, we've all got to be thoughtful. And it isn't about intellect. This is stuff children can understand. Children can understand logical speech. And you keep it simplistic. God allows us to keep stuff simplistic. It's just that everything's been so convoluted deliberately that it's no wonder we have such a hard time wrapping our minds around stuff. Why guys like me sound so radical. I sound like some wild-eyed pipe-dreaming idealist. But really, I'm the logical guy. I am the fiscal conservative, okay? I'm the prudent guy. I'm with his feet firmly on the ground. I want problems fixed, and I know it's not a difficult thing. It's not that they can't be fixed, but there's such vast opposition to fixing the problems. Affordable housing right there. So people aren't living in abject poverty, desperate poverty. Yes, people have to feel safe and secure. Someday that day is coming. No man has a right to take away or deny another man the things that God would say are okay. Okay, mankind doesn't have to provide those things, but you can't stop people from providing for themselves. But that's what the law is now. They're trying to have it both ways. They're trying to have their cake and eat it too. Okay, that's it. They want to make all these draconian laws for us and say, no, well, basically, they're not going to tell you, but you don't have a right to exist. It's going to cost you. And if you can't afford it, then go die out in the cold. That's our so-called reality that's been handed to us. And are we to beat our heads against the wall and just tweak the social, political, economic system with, and tweak it here and there, a little here and there, and so it benefits us, and we put rose-colored glasses on, ignore other people's problems, basically ignore Jesus, the least of men? Is that what we're to do? Okay, if we do, then we're going to get the reward that we deserve at the end of our days for neglecting Jesus and his will for us. What he said, if you're my friend, then you'll do my commands, okay? We've got to do his commands. We can't just pay lip service. We've got to embrace it. In our thoughts, it starts in our thought system, how we think about things. Manipulating our own, let God manipulate your own philosophy and your mindset, your belief systems. And then those words will come out of your mouth. And you'll say, yes, I'm a new person. I've grown, I've learned, I've evolved, I've become more godlike, I've become a better friend to God, and therefore, thereby, a better friend to humanity, and therefore, thereby, a better friend to myself. I'm more free because I'm ready to set everybody free. So I'm already free in that sense. I'm ready to live in that world. I'll serve you, and I'll be utterly free, and I'll just be free to do whatever I want. Whenever you see me, I'm free to do whatever I want at any given time, anything at all. Because I offer that to you. And you could say the same thing I'm saying right here. And you could be God's child, you could be God's friend, and that's how hard it is. That's his yoke being easy, his load being light. There's not going to be any one-upmanship in the coming realm that when God instills his society on earth, there's not going to be any advantage, disadvantage there, no wealth and income disparity, no money, no Satan, no. They're going to utterly be rendered irrelevant, separated, put in a different place because God's going to be done with them bullying the righteous, those that are willing to live in that perfect world, that ideal world. Who's to tell anybody that you don't have a right, at least to strive for that world and say, look, I'm fighting the good fight. I'm doing what my conscience dictates to me. I have to do it. If I don't do it, I'm untrue to myself and I'm going to hell. Who am I? I'm nobody. I don't even know myself. I've just become a brute beast. Conforming, complying to the beast system, feeding the beast, paying all my taxes and not questioning it. I'm well heeled and I don't care. I can't worry where that money's going, just to make the problem worse. So you feed the beast, the problem gets worse. But as long as you're dodging the bullets, because your numbers are going up, your income is going up commensurately, you can keep your head above water, then you don't care about other people's problems. Do you see how this thing works and how it really doesn't work? Okay, basically that's what I'm saying. We're beating our heads against a wall, trying the same thing over and over again. It's madness. It's insanity. And we've got to get it. And we've got to go for the root of the problem. We've got to go for the jugular. That's the money printing class and all their political, whorish, sycophantic minions and cohorts that they are complicit and conspiring against the American people with. So, because they're the ones that are, legitimizing it because they voted for the bailout against 90% of the will of the American people. And somehow we're supposed to accept that as a democracy, as a republic. I mean, it's nothing like that. So now we're supposed to forget about that's past. Let's move on and just forget that. That huge thing. No, we need a reset. We need to have that market correction. That's my point. So we need to revisit, as painful as people might think that's going to be. I'm telling you, nobody has anything to fear. Because if the worth of your property goes down, just remember the worth of everybody's property went down at the same time. That's going to work to your advantage eventually. Everything gets cheaper and cheaper as your currency goes up and up in worth. As it inflates, increases in worth. As the cost of living deflates, decreases, debases in cost, in burden, in taxation. It's all very simplistic. It's really not all that intellectual. The reason that people find it a problem, and it sounds so far out and radical of things I'm talking about, it sounds so liberal, but it's really even not. It's really fiscally prudent and conservative, okay, is because we've been trained. Oh boy. So yeah, David Knight was talking about civil asset forfeiture. This is the law enforcement is just taking people's stuff, saying, well, maybe there was a crime, maybe there wasn't. We think that there was enough evidence that, they made this money illicitly, so we're just going to snatch it. It's turning law enforcement into criminals too. You understand how this thing works? Then they depend on it for their income. It's just like paying tips. Well, if it's required to pay the tip, then they're going to have to charge, declare it on their taxes. Because it wasn't just a gift, right? It was somebody giving you a tip, and it's expected. You got to pay this gratuity on your receipt. So it's not right. It changes the dynamics entirely of the situation. So it's unconstitutional. We don't have due process in a case like that. So no, civil asset forfeiture is just theft under a different under a different name. It's just a guise for open, overt theft by law enforcement entities, okay? It's wrong. It's immoral. It's un-American. It's unconstitutional. It denies people due process, okay? It's not okay. Let's see. Alex Jones and Dr. Group were talking about fasting. Look, I'm not going to get into the benefits of fasting too much, but I've done it before. I don't recommend it. I think I never needed to fast. I think if you're tuned into your body enough, we go hungry. That's why we have breakfast. You break your fast. I am sometimes a light eater in the morning. I'll admit I can have a banana. Usually I try to pick the big ones at the grocery store until noon or later. That's what I'll eat. But I'm pretty skinny guy, I guess. Body mass and weight and fat. What do they call it? The fat percentages and all that. I forget what the terms are. Body fat mass or... But I've got a very low one. But I try to make sure that I get sufficient nutrition. You need about 50 average, 50 at least minimum grams of protein a day. Every man should out there, women slightly less. A lot of men are going to want a lot more protein. But there's good forms of protein. They're not such good. They're the ones that aren't so good. I mean, the red meat, if it's going to get stuck in your guts, you might need to do fasting. And this is what they say. That often this is what happens with red meat. It still wants to stay in there and be digested for years and years. So you might need to. But if you're not doing a heavy diet with red meat and stuff, I say don't fast. If especially if you're a vegetarian, and nobody that eats fish can call themselves a vegetarian. So I'm not a vegetarian. I eat fish, but I'll eat birds once in a while. But there are plenty of forms of protein. I mean, the peanut butter and the eggs. And though I haven't eaten eggs in a couple of months with the weather, I haven't felt like with the heat. But I love sardines, so. There's a lot of other ways to get protein. Dairy products are a prime example. Of course, there's good whole grain breads out there and other forms of grain and seeds and a lot of other ways to get protein. So this idea that we absolutely need meat to be healthy, I don't buy it, though I understand people's thinking. I don't hold it against them at all. In fact, I really like Dr. Joel Wallach. And he's a proponent of eating meat, and he talks about eating it practically raw. He talks about eating sweetbreads and all this stuff, and I'm not in any of that, but I think he's right. He's the guy that said a cube of butter a day keeps a doctor away. All I'm saying is I really don't think I gleaned any benefits by starving my body. I don't think it's a very healthy thing, and I don't think healthy people need to. If you drink plenty of water and you listen to your body, you let it get hungry, they've proven now that rejuvenates your body. So this breaking your fast thing, just going overnight without eating, and you get so hungry, I mean, it's good. Your body takes in vitamins, nutrients, minerals, enzymes, all this stuff, the protein, the amino acids, and all this stuff. It needs this stuff. It's a machine. So that's all I want to say. Even though I've done fasting, I don't recommend it to the average person because I haven't had good experiences. I think I'm probably too skinny today because I probably messed up my metabolism. God knows what happened. I wasn't a breastfed baby either. So that's another thing that happens. I think that breastfed babies obviously have an advantage in this regard. So mothers, please breastfeed your babies. But back in the day, it was a trend, and all these women, it was trendy to not breastfeed and just give them formula and stuff. So, whatever the case is, I think I've suffered from not having the real thing. And enough said about that. I already talked about the 34-year-old woman that was murdered here in Chico. You know, the last week I was talking about the Philadelphians and the Laodiceans, and you know that's really how society is kind of breaking up. That the well-heeled class would be the Laodiceans. I don't need anything. I got the good numbers working for them. The Philadelphian ones are those that hate their lives in this world. They're the ones that hunger and thirst for righteousness to prevail on the earth. They're the ones that are zealous for God's will to be accomplished on earth. The Philadelphians, like the Philadelphian Church of Greece, I'm talking about, not the state of Philadelphia. But if you look into it, you'll see. And Jordan today is the modern day Philadelphia, from what I understand. I believe that. So it's like one of the safest places in the Middle East that you could ever want to be. And these are the people that have held steadfast to God's word. And that's what we're all supposed to do. Being a friend of God means being zealous for his will to be accomplished on earth.